welcome back to When Harry Met Sally.
Hello, Harry.
Hi, Sally.
So excited. I've been waiting for episode 4 to be talking to this fantastic guest.
I know, me too. We've had a couple of great guests on so far, but this one's a real institution, I think.
An institution? I wonder how he feels about that. I wonder if you can guess who it is.
So here we are today sitting with Andrew Chapman.
Woohoo!
Hi, Andrew.
Hi, maybe I should be institutionalised. What do you think?
Well, we'll let you know after 30 minutes.
Oh, it's so wonderful to have you here. It's a real honour to be sitting next to you, Andrew.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming in today, Andrew. And wow, like a career that spanned over 5 decades. It's really an extraordinary career for any industry, but in photography, and you've managed to continually produce extraordinary work and become a part of some, lifelong subjects. And one of the things that when I first met you many, many years ago, I fell in love with the work that you did throughout your political photography career, if you like. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Well, like many people from my generation, I was a product of the 1972 election when Whitlam came in. That period leading up to it anyway, in the Vietnam moratorium, Whitlam's election in, was it 72 or 74? Actually, things get a bit hazy for me now, guys.
We'll go with 72. Early, yeah. We'll go with that.
That sort of cemented my generation's political views to the left, generally the end of the Vietnam War and getting out. And I photographed a lot of the moratorium. I was there on the day at South Melbourne outside the Liberal Party headquarters when Whitlam was sacked in Canberra and we were out protesting on the street. And then I just used to turn up at election campaigns and start taking photographs. And even when I was driving trucks for Australia Post, I went down to Her Majesty's Theatre on Exhibition Street there in Melbourne and got a photograph of Gough Whitlam when he was running for re-election, and he had the president of the ACTU, Bob Hawke, with him.
Yeah,
and
wow.
It's not a great photo technically, but it's quite a lovely photo. It's a historic photo of two prime ministers together.
Absolutely. And your book Campaign is one of my most treasured books. It's really just got some extraordinary images. So did you travel around? Did you ever meet Gough Whitlam? Did you meet any of those prime ministers personally, or show them your shots?
I met very few of them personally. I preferred to be a fly on the wall and an observer. So I guess as that sort of person, you can't really go and say hi. I have met Bob Hawke. I met him, I was introduced to him outside the Lemon Tree Hotel one day. So I have met him, and I've had my photograph taken with Bob Hawke. Actually, I've even had my photo taken with Tony Abbott. I think that's in the bottom of the drawer somewhere. That one. I've got a lovely photo of myself and Bob Hawke together from probably the early 80s.
Yeah. I'd love to, probably not on this podcast, but have a chat to you about what's going on in politics now. Are you still photographing it?
No, look, the last photographs I did was when Bill Shorten was running. And everybody expected him to make inroads, and Scott Morrison won that famous election and took Australia onto some really great things. I thought Scott did, along with what's his name? Is his name Peter Dutton? I think he also, they've done remarkable things to Australia.
And with your, well, we'll just might move on from there.
There's a bit of a giggle happening now, just for the listeners at home who can't see Andrew's face.
And moving right along,
my heart started pumping a little bit.
I'm thinking, does he really need to be institutionalised?
Don't we all do a secret handshake at this point?
That's it. Nobody can see that, though. We're verbal.
It's getting hot in this photo booth.
Have a water, Harry. Have a water. Oh, okay.
I love that you just touched on the fact that you were driving postal vans while you were sort of trying to snap the elections, and that you were, going to rallies whilst having this other sort of job on the side. So it seems strange to me. I know that there's so many photographers out there that are working kind of multiple jobs, but the great Andrew Chapman kind of driving
but did you
postal
deliver on
vans,
time? That's what I want to know.
as well. Did you have many other jobs while you were getting your career started?
I did a few different jobs. I was a unit manager with Crawford Productions on probably the worst soap you ever made, Holiday Island. Which was about a Queensland holiday resort filmed in Victoria.
Shithouse.
In winter.
I remember that. I remember. Do you know my very first job was out at Middleborough Road with Crawford Productions in the casting department there. Is that when you were out there at Middleborough
when
Road?
When were you there? What years were you there?
I'm going to say 82, 83. It was part-time while I was at school.
I was there till... 82. I was probably there 82.
Stop.
We nearly crossed
Look
paths
at us.
there.
Wow.
Nearly crossed paths.
Because I did work experience there, and then I started to go back and work in my holidays, and I loved it. But it was them that sort of talked to me about photography really as well. But, so that would have been an interesting
I'd
role.
left college at Paran, and the second time I went the first time and didn't make it all the way through. They failed me in my final year. They didn't think I had the goods to become a photographer.
Wow.
So,
okay.
An
interesting
That's
twist.
when I went and drove trucks and did some other things. I was very lucky, actually. I was living in a share house in North Fitzroy, and a friend of mine saw a job for the Melbourne Times come up and said, "You should go for that." And I said, I wouldn't get that job. I haven't got any qualifications. And it's like the Paul Kelly song, I've done all the dumb things, you know. And seriously, you know, I have done all the dumb things. I knew nothing. And as a Cancerian, I've developed a new saying, I go forward sideways. And, you know.
You are the crab, the true crab. I love that we're talking horoscopes.
So, you know, what I should have done, I should have got a good mentor. I should have got somebody who'd teach me, take me under their wing. But I kind of...
You came up the rough way.
Oh, I don't know.
Worked it out.
Look, you know, when you're young, you think you know everything and you know nothing. And that was me, you know. And so I learnt very slowly, and... You know, where I've gotten to, it's just from learning and making mistakes. It's really mistake-driven.
Actually,
really mistake-driven.
we've spoken about that you learn most from the mistakes that you make along the way.
Absolutely.
So, and, go Harry.
So I'd love to, you know, just, you know, going back to what Sally said, you know, 5 decades in the industry, I'd love to just... Like, what do you think that photography's had so many iterations and changes along the way. What do you think? Does something stick out as the sort of the biggest change in photography, or is there a point that you thought that things were really that things really kind of mixed up, or you know, was it when digital came in, or was it something more sort of social than that?
Well, look, when digital came in, it really changed the dynamic. Before digital, and everyone was shooting film. You know, everybody knew how to shoot film and process black and whites and things, but there was only a certain, I wouldn't call them a clique, that's probably a little bit elitist, but there was a certain group of photographers who could shoot colour transparency, where the exposure had to be accurate, the colour temperature of lighting had to be accurate, and all those things. So when we were working in those environments, particularly in magazines, you had that to yourselves. And not many people piled in. And Sally, you remember those days.
I do remember those days, and I touched on that earlier with the students as well.
And now you can pick up a camera and take a photo and look at the back and go, oh, yeah, actually I need to move 2 inches to the left, or, you know, that tree growing out of Sally's head, so that's not quite right for the photo.
That's actually my hair.
Yeah. But you make your mistakes as you go. And you know, people say everybody's a photographer these days, and I think it's true to a degree. Everybody's capable of taking a good photo. I think the difference between professionalism and amateurism is that professional photographers take photos on demand. They're assigned photos and they have to deliver. And if they don't deliver, they don't tend to get much more work.
You get one go, don't you?
Absolutely.
If you do it, then you get another go. If you stuff it up, see you later.
Yeah. Well, everybody's responsible to someone else. So if you're in magazines or in commercial, whatever, your editor or the person who signs you the job, they're responsible to someone higher up the food chain. And you know, if you bugger it up, someone's going to say, well, why'd you hire that person for? So it reflects on your client.
Yeah, it's a real ripple effect. Andrew, look, there's probably so many things that you could say to this question, but what has been your greatest photographic achievement, do you think, in that time?
Look, it's really hard. I'm doing a book at the moment, the basis of a book on my life's work, and, you know, trying to pull 200 photographs down is very difficult for a start. Probably on a personal level, the most intense project I ever did was a photo essay called Giving Life, in which I photographed the journey of a human organ transplant, and I had to photograph a youngish lady being withdrawn from life support and dying, and then I had to photograph a 34-year-old guy receiving a liver. And it's one of those jobs.
Was it her liver?
No, not her liver. We couldn't relate the two people together just because you're not supposed to know.
I understand.
For those who don't know, I had a liver transplant in 2011, and I nearly died. It was a fairly intensive process. So I was photographing something I knew very, very well, and I didn't want this essay to fail, and it was 13, 14 hours in surgery with young Nick, and it was a much quicker process with the lady who was withdrawn from life support. And it's one of those periods when, as a photographer, you're sitting there watching someone dying, going, what am I doing here? I know why the doctors are there. I know why the nurses and the ICU, I know they've all got something to do. I'm just kind of like a voyeur looking on.
Andrew, who commissioned you to do that? Was that your project, or did the lady commission you, or her family? Or
look, after I had my my transplant, and I was getting, a few years after, and we were talking about volunteering, and my wife said, "Oh, you should be a volunteer." And she said, and not a photographic one. Go and do something different. So I thought, that's good. So I rang Donate Life and in Victoria and said I'd like to volunteer. And they asked a few questions about me. And then they said, and what do you do? And I said, I'm a photographer. And they just went, we might have a project for you. And the project was to photograph, as I said, the journey of a human organ transplant for an exhibition that they wanted to do for Donate Life Week. And they wanted it done totally photojournalistically, totally no lighting, no setups, no nothing. And it was just right up my street. It came to me, this beautiful essay.
Isn't that, that's given me goosebumps.
So I am a lecturer at a photography studies college, and in this sort of day and age where, teaching students to very much, shoot what they know, shoot their own environment, shoot what they know, shoot their, their communities, their lived experience, I suppose. This is kind of the language we're using to kind of get students to kind of be photographing in an authentic way. I suppose what you're saying there is really kind of shooting what you know. Like, Sally asked if the most pivotal moment in your career, and you're talking about something that you really, that was a really lived experience for you.
Absolutely,
would you agree with that?
Absolutely, it was a lived experience, and
I remember that time when you were so ill, and it was you're bloody lucky to be here, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, if any of the listeners out there in podcast land want to Google Andrew Chapman and the word yellow, they'll come across a video by Chris Franklin, which is a 14-minute video which charts that, and you can see how sick I looked.
Yes. It's an extraordinary piece.
A wonderful thing about nearly dying is, for the 10 years after, everybody remarks on how well you look.
And you go, I looked shit house before. Oh, yeah. Actually, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that a little bit actually, because I've seen that video and it's really a beautiful video. And I've also seen over the years that you have been the subject of many photos as well. How does
Loves
it
his
feel?
photo being taken.
How does it feel being on the other side of the camera? Is that something you've grown used to as you've gotten, older, or
More mature.
more mature?
What they say, I've got a good face for a
Radio.
photograph. I've got a good face for a photograph. No, not for radio, but I've always liked that whole thing. I've got a saying called the mark of time, and time is what's stamped on every material and every human, really. And older faces are much more interesting than younger faces. And where am I going with this?
Are you?
I like
So
being
you like being in front of photographs?
You can't go and ask somebody to be photographed if you're not prepared to have it done to you.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I do it. And I know some photographers who hate being photographed.
Yes.
Yeah.
And literally won't let you. And I go, well, so what? You're happy to do it to other people, but you don't want it done to yourself.
You learn so much being directed by other people, I think. Like in the last few years, I've had professional friends take my photo as well, and I actually really enjoy the experience. And then now I've got these portraits of myself taken by different industry friends. They all look so different because it's their interpretation of me,
Yeah,
and
it's
I
great.
think
Any
it's
chance
almost
I
like
can
a
get.
different person.
I love being in front of a
looks
camera.
like-
Right upstairs from this little sound studio here down in the basement.
Collards, yeah.
Yeah, there used to be a studio with, I won't name the people in there, but three good friends of mine had a studio, and one of them, I took a couple of portraits of her over there. She's a very well-known photographer, and she didn't like them. Both times she said, I don't like that photo. And then she'd come back to me about 4 or 5 years later. That photo you took of me, gee, that's good.
Yeah.
Yes.
I looked good back then.
Yeah,
Good on
that's
it.
the thing. Wait a few years and you'll love it.
Andrew, I want to bring up MAP. I'd like for you to tell us what MAP is, how MAP started, and what's happening with it now, if you're able to, as we sort of draw towards the end of this fabulous conversation.
Okay. Back in the late 90s, we all used to meet down at the Colour Labs, particularly down at CPL Services, and you'd put your film in for processing and go and have a coffee and you'd chat, and everyone would whinge about working for clients and having to do what other people wanted to do. I've always had documentary's always been my thing, and I was having a talk with a teacher friend down at Ararat, and I decided we'd do a project and photograph the local community. So I just went to the photographers I knew and said, anyone want to come down to Ararat and do a project? And I don't know, we had 20 or 30. And they came down and we all just went down, and it was take what you want, how you want. It's got to be documentary, it's got to reflect the town, but do what you want. And it was just a freedom project for people, and people loved that. A lot of photographers really felt liberated by that
What year are we talking?
1998.
Yep,
so it's
got it.
pre-digital. Well, for most people, it's pre-digital and a simpler world, I guess. Although we did have the millennium bug about to happen in 1998, didn't we? But it was a simpler world. And we produced about 100 images and printed them at our own cost, and we donated it to the community. And people got a really good kick. Other photographers got a great kick out of that. And gradually it morphed into doing a project with Julie Milliwick and her photojournalism students up at Bendigo. And then it morphed into doing it at St Arnaud, and we did a map. No, it wasn't called Mapping St Arnaud. What was it called? I can't remember the title of it, actually. I should know that. But we went down to St Arnaud, and when we were meeting up afterwards, we decided to sort of become a formal group, and we were having breakfast down at the Observatory Cafe in the Botanical Gardens. And we're sitting there and we're trying to work out a name for it. And Suzanne Silver saw the coffee cups there, and they had MAP coffee written on them.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
she looked at MAP and she said,
I
many
had
Australian
those coffee
photographers.
Oh, good on her.
And that's
Don't you
how
love how things like that happen?
Things like that sort of happened really nicely.
From a bloody coffee cup.
And MAP Group was born, and I think we incorporated. We got the bank statement. We had to get insurance. We had to do all that sort of thing. But MAP went on to produce quite a few documentary projects on towns, on Hay in New South Wales, Wonthaggi, Ballarat. We did a project on Melbourne's laneways, which were Little Big Town.
You did one on the now correct me if I'm wrong, but it was something to do with the
drought.
The shelf down near like Port Fairy, Port Campbell, down in the Western District. It was something Jim McFarlane was involved in that. It was like a volcanic shelf or something.
We were going to be doing the volcanic plains, but that one never got off the ground, unfortunately. Yeah.
I remember because I'm interested in that area.
There were projects floated and some flew and some didn't at the time. And it was really up to members how enthusiastic they were for it.
So how did the membership grow? Like how many ultimately do you think? Did people come and go?
People came and people went. Some stayed. So we've had long-term members like Ponch Hawks, for example, Brent Lukey, do you know? I don't know if you know Brent.
Yep.
There are quite a few. Others came. A lot of photographers are solo travellers. They do it on their own.
Yeah.
So we'd get people who are kind of interested. They'd come for a week or month or two, and then you wouldn't see them again. And it's not that they didn't like what we're doing. They just realised it wasn't them.
But you know, nice to like be able to dip in and dip out of something like this, or that project really resonates with me, or, you know, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
So tell us what's happening tomorrow night.
Well,
it won't be tomorrow night when the podcast happens, but it's actually as we're recording this.
Yeah.
What's currently happening?
After around 25, 26 years, MAP's sort of run out of steam. And this is what happens with group dynamics, I guess. People
but we're talking 25 years. You know,
25
it's not like 2
years is a long time. And I think that we've sort of laid a stamp on documentary photography particularly.
You've put your name on the map, haven't you?
We've put our name on the map. So, we did some very large projects, including our refugee project and including the Beyond Reasonable Drought project.
That's right.
As well.
Oh, I love that
book.
book.
So we're having an exhibition to wrap it up, and I said to a few people, I said, we can't just finish it off without doing a book about it. You know, I want, if people, scholars come along in the future and want to know what was happening in Australian photography between, the late 1990s and the, early 2020s, it'd be great to have a book. So we pulled our resources together, got as many of the photographers who I could remember into the book. We've got a great designer, Anna Wolf, and Anna has designed the book, and we've had a small edition of about 125.
I've paid for mine. I'm picking it up. Thank you.
Well, it's going to be a collector's item, so you might be able to retire on that.
Oh, wow. Okay, all right. You better sign it for me.
It's so important that you've made sure that you're doing something to kind of finish this, this time, because I think so by the time that these, some groups or organisations come to the end, they're sort of ready to, that it just sort of finishes without unceremoniously. So it's so wonderful that you've, got that final energy to kind of put that book together and have an exhibition and get everyone together.
And Andrew, I think Harry would be in complete agreement with me. We could talk to you for hours, but we have to limit our time here today, but we are going to be doing a second episode and hopefully a third episode or series. So you never know, we might get you back to talk post what happened with the MAP book. But what we like to do at the end of every conversation that we've had is to ask you one simple question. Why do you do what you do? Why do you do photography?
Well, for me, photography was a light bulb moment. When my friend Brian taught me how to use a camera, and I was a dumb kid. I didn't know anything. I wasn't good at sport. I wasn't academic. I love photography, and here I am all these years later. I turned 70 the other day.
Happy birthday.
And I was on fire about taking photographs, as I probably more than back then. And, I see people go through life and they have nothing that drives them. I've had photography drive me. It's given me a wonderful life, and I'm very happy for that. I reflect a lot about death, and I want to leave an archive behind that other people can see, because that's what I did with my life. I recorded things. I recorded posterity.
And so beautifully. And everything that I've ever seen of yours, it really always has struck a chord with me. And I'm really looking forward to having my, another one of your books don my shelves. And I think what you said about photography, it seems to be a common occurrence as we're talking to people why we do what we do. It's that pure love, isn't it? And I can't thank you enough. Harry and I have just so enjoyed our conversation.
Our conversation, and also just the dedication that you've had over 50 years to photography, whether that was, organic and natural, but thank you anyway, because as you say, you're going to have left a huge archive of what it was like to be in Australia throughout this huge changing half a century. It's really amazing.
It is. It's very amazing.
It's bloody amazing.
I'm glad I lived through it. I mean, I always want to know what happens next.
Yeah, good for you. Yeah, so do we.
Yeah,
What's happening next in our next podcast?
Well, actually, nice segue, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you for that one.
So in the next episode, we'll be talking to Jesse Marlowe, who is another institution. I don't know if that's the right phrase, but I'm rolling with it.
Go with that.
He's incredible photographer who's really diversified his business and practice to kind of bring in all different sort of revenue streams, and again is another person that's really surrounded themselves with photography and been absorbed by it.
And the business of photography too, isn't it?
I'm excited to talk to him.
Me too.
As
well, Harry, see you next episode. And Andrew, thank you so much for coming today. It's been a joy.
And it's been a joy for me too.
Okay.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.